Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. We've had another very eventful day where, as usual, I will be trying to connect the dots and give you the latest updates to try and establish an understanding as to what's happening and where things are going in the region. We're going to start off with Lebanon, but I'm not just going to talk about Lebanon. I'll speak about Gaza, and I'm going to bring you the latest updates from there and the meeting between Blinken and Netanyahu, alongside what the previous Mossad head Ephraim Halevi said in the New York Times. So to start off with Hezbollah. Hezbollah made an announcement after the assassination of Saleh al-Aruri, one of the Hamas senior figures in Beirut, in Al-Dahiya al-Janubiyya, the southern suburb of Beirut, which is known to be a Hezbollah hub. Hezbollah said that they will retaliate. This won't pass without retaliation and punishment. A couple of days ago, they said they started their initial first response. Now, Israel killed one of their leading figures in the military wing yesterday, and their response included retaliation for him as well. So a couple of days ago, they attacked the main air surveillance command center in northern Israel, in Har Miron, or Jabal al-Jamraq in Arabic. They attacked it with 62 missiles. Today, they attacked the northern command center in the Israeli army in Safad. They attacked it with UAVs, and there were confirmed videos of them attacking it. That didn't end there. They also landed many missiles on Israeli towns, and with Hezbollah's attacks, although not many of them are reported very heavily on mainstream media, but Hezbollah, their attacks already made over 100,000 Israelis leave their homes in the north, and that's putting a lot of pressure on Israel. Add to over 150,000 from the south, and they destroyed major small towns in northern Israel. Some of them, 50 to 70% of the homes were destroyed. And in a town like Metullah, 120 homes out of 600 were destroyed and targeted by Hezbollah. Now, many people try and undermine what they're doing because they're not going full throttle. And I agree with the fact that they're not going full throttle, but the level of damage that Hezbollah is doing to Israel is very, very intense. They sucked up a lot of energy from the IDF, and they caused a lot of damage to main command centers for the Israeli army. And one of the most interesting developments with the Hezbollah is the fact that the Israeli Broadcasting Authority said that the health ministry in Israel advised all hospitals in the north of Israel to be on high alert and prepared to take casualties in their thousands. So they're preparing for something big. Now, so far, Israel and Hezbollah have done tit for tat. There's underlying rules of conflict between them. You go this far, I go that far. But things can get out of hand in any moment between the two. So it's still very, very tense. And the next few days might see more increase in the military action between the two. There was also a report yesterday that the Iraqi Islamic Resistance launched a cruise missile, an upgraded one, on Haifa. I haven't received a confirmation yesterday, but there was a report today about witnesses in the northern suburb of Haifa confirming that there was a landing. Obviously, with Israeli military censorship, we're unable to verify this information, but I thought I would share this with you. Which leads me to Gaza. Today we've had two statements. One of them was from Al-Qassam Brigade spokesperson Abu Ubaida, a written statement in which he said that Al-Qassam brigades in the last few days carried out 52 operations. Some of them were joint with Saraya al-Quds, the military wing of the PIJ, where over 42 Israeli vehicles were damaged. They took down 4 UAVs, took control of 2 of them, and they also attacked a helicopter. They also detonated minefields in Israeli soldiers and caused dozens of casualties in the Israeli army. When it comes to the spokesperson of Saraya al-Quds, Abu Hamza, he reiterated again that if the war will last forever, they will keep fighting Israel forever. They're willing to fight forever up until they receive their rights. And he also made a comment about the talks of disarming the resistance and taking away their weapons by saying, they who wish to take away our weapons, we will take away their souls. So he confirmed that they're continuing with the resistance up until the Palestinians receive their rights, no matter how long the battles will take. And he also confirmed that they had joint operations with Al-Qassam brigades. Another thing he mentioned is Netanyahu's promise to the settlers that they can go back to their homes, because Netanyahu is facing a lot of pressure from the people who left their homes from the southern and northern parts of Israel due to the war, promising them that they'd be able to come back, and many of them are not believing him. And Abu Hamza reiterated that he's selling them delusions and there's no way they can come back until the Palestinians receive their rights and Israel stops the genocide in Gaza. Now, yesterday, Israel admitted that it was the worst day since the beginning of the war. And today, we started receiving confirmations as to what happened. Now, remember, everything is not to be taken as full truth from Israel. You always need to take it with a pinch of salt, or a bowl of salt with 2 spicy pepper bowls as well, like I said yesterday. But they said that they lost 9 soldiers yesterday, and Haaretz published that IDF is conducting an investigation regarding the bombing of an ammunition center by an IDF tank. So yesterday, there was a report that the big ammunition center belonging to the Israeli army was bombed. Many people considered that the resistance bombed it, but now they're saying Israel is investigating if it came through an Israeli tank shell, which is very probable. I mean, I spoke about previously multiple reports from Israel that many Israeli soldiers were killed due to crossfire between IDF soldiers and IDF tanks running over Israeli soldiers. So many of them were killed during this war. But this is another confirmation that Israel is killing its soldiers by behaving very amateurly when it comes to the war in Gaza, which is not surprising. We've had many of these incidents. They've killed many of their soldiers, including the very popular day where they killed 3 of their own hostages who fled, speaking in Hebrew, crying for help, and holding white flags. Another report we've had was from Channel 12, the Israeli Channel 12. They said a sergeant in Giv'ati Brigade, the Israeli Giv'ati Brigade, died from a heart attack after what he witnessed in Gaza in the last few days, and because of the number of soldiers that they lost. And this was confirmed by some of his relatives, according to that report, which is also highlighting how much the Israeli soldiers are unprepared, and also many of them unwilling to fight in this war. We've had people fleeing. We've had the previous reports of 2,000 soldiers running away from the battle, Netanyahu withdrawing Golani and introducing Kfir, the settler radical brigade that includes many people from the settlements in the West Bank who are used to abusing Palestinians on a daily basis and who don't have military experience in urban warfare. All of these things just really conclude that the Israeli army is behaving in a very amateurish way when it comes to the war in Gaza, and are focusing more on TikTok videos to show off these stupid clips of them abusing people, hoping to raise the morale of a defeated army. And Benjamin Netanyahu met with Blinken. Now, Blinken started his trip to the Middle East a couple of days ago, where he met some of the Arab leaders and other leaders in the region. And today he spoke with Netanyahu, and he's continuing his change of tone. So when he met with Netanyahu, he spoke about the fact that there's too much casualties when it comes to children. Imagine that, too many children are being killed, and that the Gazans, they must be able to return to the north of Gaza. He also pressed the government not to encourage what they call willful migration, which we all know what that means, a genocide and ethnic cleansing. There is no such thing as willful migration when it comes to Gaza. Israel has a plan to ethnically cleanse Gaza from 50 years ago. We must reiterate that for anyone who is unaware of it. But Blinken was met with resistance from Netanyahu and from the war cabinet, because he met with the war cabinet separately. And when it came to him asking that those who fled northern Gaza must be able to return, must be allowed to return to the north part of Gaza, he was met with sharp disagreements from the war cabinet. So there is indeed a split, there is indeed a conflict, and the US administration and the Israeli government and war cabinet are not seeing eye to eye when it comes to ending this war and how things are going to look like. The only thing they agreed to is they might accept the fact that some UN forces might be there to inspect the area, but they told him the war doesn't allow any citizens who fled the northern part of Gaza, because many people remained. As a matter of fact, the majority remained in the northern part of Gaza, and that them going back will affect them defeating the Hamas according to the war cabinet members. So you're having a definite split, a definite conflict, sharp disagreements when it comes to the war and the outcome of the war. Yesterday, they started talking about them going to the third phase of the war, which will mean the ending of the war eventually. But Netanyahu doesn't want to end the war because he has no accomplishment. He's just looking for trophies that he can show his public, look, we've achieved this and that. But really and truly, he has no genuine accomplishment when it comes to the resistance and when it comes to defeating Hamas. And this was confirmed by Ephraim Halevi, which is the last thing that I wanted to talk about. Ephraim Halevi is the previous Israeli head of the Mossad. He had an interview with the New York Times. He criticized Netanyahu very heavily in that article. He said Netanyahu failed to make Hamas submit and surrender, and he must leave now. Another thing he mentioned is the fact that he's in constant meetings with the current Mossad leader, which is normal for previous Mossad heads and current Mossad heads to meet, to share opinions, share information, give advice to each other. And what he mentioned is, our losses are very painful, which highlights again the fact that they're not revealing the true number of casualties. And we all know what Israel means when it says painful. And usually they'll admit to the real numbers of their lost soldiers later on, if ever. Sometimes they won't admit how many were actually killed, but usually with Israel, they will reveal some numbers later on. Like you'll have a big attack in Gaza one day, they'll wait 1 to 2 days, they'll reveal some information. With this war, after everything ends, they might start revealing a bit more information later on. Now, this is just highlighting how much the division in Israel is prevailing, the division, and how torn they are. Leaders of the Mossad, leaders of the cabinet, Netanyahu is not agreeing to the length of the war, to the objectives of the war with his war cabinet, and people do not like him from the main security bodies in Israel, whether when it comes to the IDF, the previous heads of the Mossad, some of the internal security services. They have a distrust in Netanyahu and they highly disagree with him. Everyone wants him out, but he's clinging on to his extreme right-wing government to save himself, and he's doing whatever he can to escalate the war as much as possible. That's why we're getting these reports that he's trying to increase the tone with Hezbollah, the hospitals getting prepared for a bigger war, and them singing and chanting that they want to invade other areas and then they want to build the settlements in Gaza. This is the mentality that's happening. This is what the actual soldiers are fighting for, you know, these radical brigades that they introduce. They want settlements in Gaza. They want to replicate what's happening in the West Bank. They want to rebuild Gush Katif, a settlement that Israel previously took off when they withdrew from Gaza in 2005. So on one hand, you have the people who want to end the war, bring the hostages back, and try and reach a solution. And then you have Netanyahu and the sadistic part of the population in Israel, and there's plenty of them, who just want to continue and eliminate Gaza completely and even expand the war at the expense of the existence of Israel. Another thing that Ephraim Levy, the previous head of the Mossad, said is that Hamas and Yahya Sinwar, they're still determined. They haven't lost their determination, and that's why they're refusing to negotiate, which is very important. Many people think that Hamas is looking for a ceasefire in Gaza. It's actually Israel who's looking for a ceasefire, but they want it on their terms. Whereas Hamas told them, we won't negotiate under fire. We won't negotiate when you're attacking. Because if you recall, before the temporary ceasefire, Israel didn't want to submit and didn't want to give in to any of the Hamas conditions when it came to the ceasefire. Stopping the attacks, stopping the air surveillance, letting the people and aid go back to the north. But Israel ended up agreeing to all of these things. Now, they were hopeful that the longer they extend the war, the more accomplishment and more pressure they can put on Hamas militarily. Netanyahu was trying to sell to the public that they wouldn't have reached a temporary ceasefire deal previously if it wasn't for the military pressure on Hamas, which is completely untrue and not substantiated, because they still had their military capabilities, and they still do have their military capabilities at the moment. As a matter of fact, they're increasing their military capabilities. They're introducing new weapons. They're developing their tactics, and they're passing expertise from the north to the south and from each area that they fight Israel in, which signals that they're in control of the battle when it comes to Gaza. And Israel isn't able to establish a base that is permanent when it comes to Gaza. Each place that they attack, they withdraw from. It's not like they create a base and the only semi-permanent places that they have is on the outskirts of Gaza, primarily in the north of Gaza. But with all of the other parts in Gaza, it's back and forth, back and forth. They go in, they get attacked, they face resistance, and then they withdraw. So this is a position of strength, and this is being confirmed by the head of the Mossad. The fact that they're still determined and they still have their military capabilities, this shows strength, not weakness. The weakness part is from Israel. The fact that Hamas is saying, I'm not going to negotiate with you unless it's by my terms, this is showing a position of strength. They're still in control of the hostages. They're still in control of the battle. They're still safe. They're still conducting operations. They still have strategic missiles to target Israel. And they're giving Israel hell on a daily basis. I mean, every few weeks we have a new worst day for Israel when it comes to the war. It was in Shuja'iyya a few weeks ago. Now you have it in Gaza. Last week you had the highest number of vehicles being attacked in 3 days, 3 to 4 days. So they're in a massive position of strength, and they're proving that they can survive for a very, very long time, much longer than anyone expected in Israel. Now the question is, how long can Israel survive? You're talking about a torn country, a country in standstill. No one knows what's happening. There's complete uncertainty. You have 2.5 million Israelis outside of Israel, 1.2 million of which, even slightly more, were permanently residing outside of Israel before the war. Add to them over 1 million now. It was 1 million up until the end of November, according to multiple statistics centers in Israel that were published by the Zman website at the time. And now you have more Israelis fleeing because of the lack of certainty. There's massive uncertainty to the future. These people who live in the settlements in the south and in the north, they have nowhere to go back to. And they're telling the government, we're not going back if you end the war, and the possibility of another 7th of October happening again exists. So Netanyahu's torn between camps who want to completely eliminate the risk or reach a peaceful solution, a long-term actual peaceful solution that Israel will never agree to with its apartheid recipe, by the way. And you have the other side who wants to stop it right now, bring the hostages back, especially the people who are coming out of the battle, the families of the hostages, and the people who simply want a long-term solution between them and the Palestinians. So the big question is, how long will Israel survive, especially with the fading support globally and particularly their disagreements with the United States? So these were the main things that I wanted to talk to you about today. I hope I've added some beneficial information for you, and I'll hopefully see you soon in the next video. Take care.